Hi, I'm Jason, and this is an introduction to Shipwright. Like I said, hi, I'm Jason. I have 6+ years of experience building container images on various platforms. I helped co-found the Tekton project, and now I'm working with the Shipwright community toward a V1 API. Here's a brief agenda of what we'll go over. First up, what is Shipwright? Why do I want it? How do I use it? How does it work? We'll do a quick demo, and then I'll let you know what's next. First, what is Shipwright? Shipwright bills itself as a framework for building container images on Kubernetes. It's built on Tekton, another CDF project. Tekton is a reliable, versatile, flexible, powerful CI/CD workflow engine. Tekton and Shipwright both run on Kubernetes. Shipwright plans to do one thing well, and that is build container images. I like to use the analogy that Tekton is a Swiss Army knife, lots of tools, lots of options, and Shipwright is a hammer. It does exactly one thing. This is not an insult to hammers or to Swiss Army knives. Both are useful in their own applications. Shipwright is a hammer. So let's talk a little bit more about why you'd want it. Normally, if we were in person, I would do an audience participation poll. I'd ask everyone to raise their hands. Instead, I'll just ask you to quietly, privately raise your hand wherever you are, whenever you are watching this. During your deployment process, do you build container images from some source in a GitHub repo, say? I do. Do you want to do that? When you do that, do you want to do it securely, reliably, and easily? I know I do. If yes, you might want to take a look at Shipwright. Shipwright aims to do one thing well. It fetches source, it builds it into a container image, and it pushes that image. It takes your code, it does stuff, it pushes an image. That's it. What stuff it does in the middle there is configurable with some powerful built-in options, which we'll discuss in a little bit. If that sounds useful to you, let's talk about how to use it. Like Tekton, Shipwright is a number of CRDs, Kubernetes custom resource definition types. The build type is the main one that you would interact with on a day-to-day basis. A build defines the general build process for pulling source, doing something to it, pushing an image. This example YAML here describes a build called myBuild that pulls source from github.com/supercorp/backend. It uses build packs to build that source, and then it pushes the image to registry.supercorp.biz. When you define this YAML, you apply it to your cluster with kubectl apply or any number of other Kubernetes tools. So that example is actually a bit deceptive because pulling the source from GitHub might require credentials if it's a private repo, and pushing to the registry almost certainly requires credentials. So let's not neglect auth here. In this example, the credentials to pull from GitHub are in a Kubernetes secret called GitHub pull creds, and the credentials to push to my registry are in registry push creds. Either way, even with auth included, this is only 15 lines of YAML, so it's not all that bad. But when you create this build, it doesn't actually do anything. It just kind of sits there. It describes an intent, it describes a plan for building source in pushing an image, but it doesn't do it when you create it. In order to actually run the build, you create a build run object. This API should feel familiar to people who are already familiar with Tekton, but if you're not familiar with Tekton, that's fine. When you create a build run, you reference the build plan that you want to execute. Here, my build run is called my build run and will be given a generated suffix, and it references the build run that I showed in the previous slide. Now, when I create this configuration in Kubernetes, it will start to run. We can check on its status with kubectl get and see that it is ongoing. The status conditions there says succeeded, unknown. I don't know if it succeeded yet. When it succeeds, that status will change to true and indicate that it has succeeded. Or if something went wrong, it will say status condition failed with a helpful error message to tell you a little bit more about what went wrong. There's a lot more involved in the status here. A lot of things are omitted for this slide, but the main one that you would care about is whether it succeeded or failed. So let's dig into that strategy a little bit from before. Where's that come from? The build strategy is sort of the magic of Shipwright. It lets you declare how that source should become that image. It's 2021. There are like 50 different ways to build a container image now. In this example, we're using CNCF build packs. It's a great extensible option. It builds source code from many languages into an image without needing to write a Docker file, which is great. But there are plenty of other tools you might reach for. And a number of common strategies are provided out of the box by Shipwright. If you use a Docker file, you could build that image with Builda or Conoco or BuildKit. If you want to take source directly into a container image, you can use build packs or S2I or Co. You can define your own build strategies. You can modify the built-in strategies to add features, enforce policies, anything you want. But the built-in build strategies are generally pretty great. Let's talk briefly about how this works. Shipwright's implementation, when you create a build run, is actually pretty simple. It offloads most of the real hard work to actually execute on Tekton. Tekton has been a great foundation. It's reliable, it's extensible, it's got a lot of battle testing, and there's a great community constantly improving it. Shipwright translates a build run into a Tekton task run, and Tekton translates that task run into a pod that runs on your Kubernetes cluster. As that pod progresses, it tells Tekton how it's going, and Tekton tells Shipwright how it's going. Let's see it in action with a quick demo. So first I'll ask my cluster, what builds have I already configured? There's a build packs build, a Conoco build, and a Co build. Let's take a look at what that build packs build does. It's configured to pull the source from this GitHub repo. It's a public repo, so it doesn't need credentials. It uses the build packs v3 strategy provided by Shipwright, and it pushes an image to quay.io/imjsonh/shipwright. This requires credentials, which are stored in that secret. Next, let's take a look at the Conoco build. It's very similar. It pulls the same repo. It uses a Docker file in the repo to describe the build, and it pushes it to Quay, just like the build packs build. Finally, the Co build. This is starting to look familiar. Pulls the repo from GitHub, uses Co to build it instead. Co is a tool for building Go apps into container images, and pushes it to Quay, just like the others. Now let's create some build runs from these build definitions. We have the build packs. We create a run of the Conoco build. And we create a run of the Co build. So while these are running, we can watch their status with kubectl. We see that they're all running. They started 3 seconds ago. And the -w there will update us with status as they progress. The Co build has succeeded. A bit of movie magic was used here. The Conoco build has succeeded. And finally, the build packs build has succeeded. With that image pushed to Quay, we can run it. Docker run will fetch the image and run it and show hello CDCon. Welcome back. So now what? Shipwright has built your image and pushed it to your registry, but the story's not over yet. Shipwright isn't a one-stop shop, remember. It does one thing well. It's one tool in your toolbox. Shipwright won't deploy your images, it won't test or validate your images, and it won't scan images or enforce policies on them. The container ecosystem has a number of tools to do these already. Tekton can do these things, Jenkins can do these things. There are a lot of other tools, a lot of options. Shipwright is just one tool in your toolbox. Let's talk briefly about where Shipwright's going. This is a brief summary of the 2021 roadmap for Shipwright. It's an incomplete list. If you want to see the full list, there's a link there at the bottom. A main thing we want to do is simplify and stabilize the API toward a stable V1 API you can build things on. Another headline feature we want to work on this year is automating build runs or continuous delivery. Interesting that I would be talking about this at Continuous Delivery Con. Basically, we want to watch the repo that you configure and push an image every time that repo changes. We want to build this on Tecton triggers. Another area of improvement is we want to work on the CLI so that you can specify a build of source locally on your machine. So that you can say, Shipwright, here's some source that I have been hacking on. I would like you to build an image in the cluster. And the Shipwright CLI called ship should also be able to show you the logs of the executions of build runs, past and current. We also want to work on a lot of integrations, things like a Tecton custom task to be able to plug a Shipwright build into your overall Tecton pipeline, and lots of other integrations, most likely leveraging the CLI. So that's Shipwright. If you're in a hurry, this is the only slide you need. Shipwright will build container images in Kubernetes. You can choose your own build strategy. It's built on Tecton. It does one thing well, and we plan to steadily improve it toward a stable V1 API. But wait, there's more. Shipwright powers IBM Code Engine, which is a serverless platform from IBM. Shipwright handles the building of source into an image to run on that platform. IBM Code Engine is now in GA. And Red Hat plans to make Shipwright the foundation of its next iteration of the OpenShift build service, OpenShift Builds v2, which we expect to launch in tech preview later this year. Finally, I'm very excited to announce Shipwright intends to join CDF as an incubating project. Stay tuned for more details in the coming weeks. Lastly, I'd be remiss to mention, or remiss if I didn't mention all the wonderful humans who have helped get us here. I'm only a very small part of this. All of these people have been working on this for a very long time. If you'd like to see your name listed on that slide in future versions of this talk, come and join us. You can find docs and examples at shipwright.io. Come say hi on the Shipwright channel in the Kubernetes Slack. We have weekly community meetings where you can come and tell us your experiences, pick up an issue, send a PR. We'd love to hear from you. Finally, I have a whole bunch of Shipwright stickers. Normally, if we were in person, I would hand these out after the talk, but alas, we're not. Instead, if you feel comfortable, send me your address and I'll mail you a sticker or two. If you don't feel comfortable, I completely understand. Next time we do this in person, I'll be the guy with a bunch of stickers. Thank you for joining me for an introduction to Shipwright. I'd love to answer any questions you have. Hello. Can people hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so thank you. That's Shipwright. I have asked some polls. If you have not seen the polls in the talk, I said raise your hand quietly in your room by yourself. I didn't realize the platform would let you actually answer in the poll. Yeah, there's actually also a few bits of information that have changed since that talk has recorded. Things move quite quickly in the Shipwright world. Another talk about Shipwright was accepted to CDCon. Adam and Enrique from the Shipwright team are doing a deep dive tomorrow at 3:25 Eastern. So feel free to join that. Let me actually put the link to that in the chat. And as I mentioned, the project has been proposed as an incubating project to the TOC and is waiting for TOC approval. I expect that to have news soon. Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Let's see how the polls are going. 100% of you want to build images securely, reliably, and easily. That's good news, especially because it was the only answer. Were there any Docker build, a very popular container build tool? 71% of people build container images in your CI/CD pipeline. I'm I'm curious if you are one of the two who have said no. I'm curious what you do instead. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But if you are one of those two people, or one of the people who agrees with those two people, let me know what you do in your CI/CD pipeline. What inspired Shipwright to be developed initially? Thank you, Matthew. That's a very good question. One that I hope to get the answer to correctly, because the decision to make Shipwright predates my time working on the project. Shipwright has a lot of its roots in a project at Red Hat called OpenShift Builds. OpenShift Builds does what it says. It's a tool service in an OpenShift cluster to let you build container images, very similar to how Shipwright looks. I'm going to say this diplomatically. It's a bit old. It's built very deeply into OpenShift. And as the Kubernetes ecosystem has improved over time, I think there was sort of a desire to rethink some things, pull it out of OpenShift, make it a Kubernetes agnostic service. And at the same time, I believe, as the story goes, there were some folks at IBM interested in such a service. And they found out that Red Hat was thinking about this, and so they teamed up to work on it together. If I am saying things that are lies, and there are people who know these things that are able to correct me, please do. It's very much a black box and could not be extended easily. Yeah, thank you, Adam. One of the improvements that Shipwright makes over OpenShift Builds v1 is that it's intended to be extended through the use of build strategies. I did not go into much detail about build strategies in this talk, but Adam and Enrique's talk tomorrow at 3:25, I think it is, goes into a bit more detail about how those work and why, when, how you might use those. Oh, there's a Q&A tab. Yes, sorry, the question from Hiroyuki is, I might have missed your explanation, is the build container or custom resource namespace? The answer is yes. So each namespace, each build exists in the cluster. They can reference cluster scoped build strategies. Those are the only sort of cluster scoped things that Shipwright provides right now. You can also have namespaced build strategies. But yeah, so builds and build runs exist in namespaces, which lets you control RBAC on them, control limits and things like that in the namespace. Thank you. That's a very helpful question. Yeah, I will once again reiterate my offer for stickers. I completely understand if you don't feel comfortable emailing a stranger on the internet, but if you do feel comfortable emailing a stranger on the internet, I will send you a sticker through the mail. And if not, next time we're doing one of these in person, I will be the one throwing stickers at everybody, whether you want them or not. Yeah. Any more questions? Anything about how Shipwright works, how you might use it, where the name comes from? I'm not actually sure where the name comes from. Maybe one of the old timers on the project could enlighten me on the origin of the name. Oh, Matthew asks, how do you? Good bike shed. Matthew asks, how do you think about the local developer experience, i.e., how do devs transition from their local workflow to a central process like Shipwright? So that's a good question. One of the things that I mentioned in the talk, and also is something that I think we could go into more detail here, is Shipwright intends to make the local dev experience also easier. One of the things that we want to do is be able to, with Shipwright running on a cluster, be able to use a local CLI to say, upload my source directly from here without committing it to a Git repo or putting it anywhere else. Upload my source from here to the cluster, build it in the cluster, stream logs back, tell me how the build went. That's sort of a bridge experience between completely building locally on Docker, with like Docker build on my local machine, and something like Shipwright in the sense that you use it as your CI/CD tool where you commit to a repo and that triggers a build. Being able to iterate on code locally, send it to a cluster, have it build, tell you whether it worked, and information about the image it built is a bit of a bridge experience for that. That also means that you don't have to do that thing you sometimes do with CI/CD tools where you have to, where your Git history looks like fix CI, fix CI, fix CI, maybe this will work, maybe this will work, that didn't work, where each time you're committing just to get CI/CD to run. The local source experience is something we're very interested in enabling so that you can just iterate on those things against the cluster. And I think, I don't know if we can promise it, but I think we will try to contribute some of that code, or at least that experience, to Tecton, because I think they have also talked about you know, the need for being able to run a Tecton pipeline from your local source. Yeah, that Git history. And then if I feel ashamed of it, I go back and force push over it. But sometimes I just can't. I just can't bring myself to do it. I have to show my 50. That didn't work. That didn't work. Try to fix. Try to fix. Try to fix. I'm glad. It makes me feel good that other people experience this too. It's not just me. But we shouldn't have to do that, right? We should just upload locally from your local machine. Are there any more questions in the next KCD link? Yeah, exactly. More bug fixes, code additions, edits. Yeah, exactly. We've all been there. Is there anything else people have questions about, or how's the poll? How are the polls going? Docker build still in the lead. I'm curious if people use Docker build in their cluster. So Shipwright and Tecton are very focused on running inside the cluster, and I know there are security pitfalls with running Docker build inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Please don't do that. So I'm curious if people have, are people that are using Docker build are doing it inside a Kubernetes cluster, or if they just do it locally. I'm excited. Still 100% of people say they want to build their images securely, reliably, and easily. That's good news. Yeah, I guess in the absence of questions, I will once again plug Adam and Enrique's talk tomorrow at 3:25. And if you are interested in learning more about Shipwright as a CDF project, there's a link to the TOC issue that proposes Shipwright. Feel free to read through the proposal, give thumbs up or comments or hearts or thumbs down if you feel that way. Yeah, I would love to answer more questions if anybody has any. Oh, how did you find the process of applying to become a CDF project? Thank you, Matthew. That's a very good question. I've found it to be very easy so far. I was a little afraid of it because it's a process. You know, you're applying to be approved for something, but it turned out it was mostly just write a markdown document, fill out a quiz, questionnaire is probably the adult word for it. And all of the questions were easy. You know, are you open source? Do you have people contributing to this? What are your plans? What's your roadmap? And luckily we already had those. Mainly I think, I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that the project would have been approved and joined by now if it wasn't for the ongoing TOC elections also currently happening. So there was a bit of a snag with the outgoing TOC members didn't want to approve something before the incoming TOC members came in, and there was an election ongoing. So I think we're mainly just in a holding pattern for that to finish. And now that that's done, that shouldn't be an issue. But that's really the only snag, and that's mainly just to sit and wait until a new thing happens. So yeah, the process has been fantastic. If you are if you are contributing to an open source project and you are interested in having it contributed to the CDF, don't let the process scare you. It's easy. It's very, very easy. At least it was for us. I assume it's that easy for everyone. Thank you for that question and all of your questions. Yeah, I guess to continue vamping for time. If you are interested in learning more, go to shipwright.io. We have community meetings on Mondays at it's 9 a.m. Eastern time. I promise we are all very nice. Come and join us in the Shipwright channel on the Kubernetes Slack. We'd love to answer questions, arrange meetings, give demos, talk about whatever you want. We are, in general, very nice people. Not in general, we're all of us very nice people. Yeah. Any more questions about? We also like animals. There's a rule that I have been breaking in the community meetings, where when you add an agenda item, you're supposed to add a picture of an animal. So our agendas are very full of adorable animals. If that's not a reason to come to the community meetings, I'm not sure what could possibly be a better answer than that. But yeah, I should have led with that. This whole talk should have just been about how our agendas are full of animals. What was I thinking? Yeah. Any more questions? We have a few more minutes left before this wraps up. All right. Once again, if you are comfortable sending me your email or sending me an email with your information, I will send you some stickers. They're around here somewhere. They're around here somewhere. Yeah, otherwise come say hi in the Slack or in any of the various chat rooms associated with this event. Come to Adam and Enrique's talk tomorrow. It should be great. Okay, both. All right. Thank you, everybody.